Hey everybody, it's Jack Clubs Painting here with another tutorial. I'm going to be going over Deathwing armor workup today. So we've got our Deathwing Terminator here, sub-assemblies mounted on our rubber stoppers, and we're going to be priming with Stynylrez black primer out of the airbrush. Just want to make sure that when you're priming these guys, you don't build up too much paint in any one area, and constant passes, and keep everything super thin. All right, now we're going to do a pre-shade. This is kind of an optional step. You don't really always have to do a pre-shade, especially with the way that we're layering up these colors. But I like to because you can put it on really thin. It's not going to put too much paint on the model or take away the detail, and it kind of helps you build up the muscle memory of where you need to be spraying for your highlights on the armor. So we're just spraying from a completely top-down angle, trying to get that white paint to kind of dust over the model to catch all of the raised details and create highlights and shadows that we can see throughout the model as we put on new colors. Alright, now we're going to get into our first color. This is Vallejo Game Air Beasty Brown. It's a really nice kind of orange-brown mid-tone color. I really like it for bone workups and even some pieces of dirty whites. We're going to be spraying this pretty thin across the model. You don't want to build up too much pigment anywhere, but you do want every single part of that model to get that Beasty Brown on it in some way, because you don't want any of the pure black shadow showing through, and you don't want any of that pure white pre-shade showing through. So we're going to get a really nice undercoat going on all the pieces of the model, and that's going to represent our shadows for the bone color of the armor. Alright, now we're going to go into our first highlight. This is Army Painter Skeleton Bone from their Watercolor series. It's kind of a darker bone color than what you normally work with, and I like it especially for this one because we're trying to create a lot of contrast with these colors. So instead of just kind of spraying it all over the model and trying to cover up that brown, we're going to be targeting specific areas to create these highlights of a really bright bone color with that really dark shadow of Beasty brown by comparison. And it's going to give this like a really striking kind of comic book look to it that is my personal favorite way of painting Space Marine armor. As you're putting down these highlights, you want to make sure that you're specifically targeting certain spots. You're not moving the airbrush over the model at different angles, trying to create a full coat. You're just targeting areas, letting that paint build up really slowly, a whole lot of air, and minimal amounts of the pigment coming out of the airbrush so that you don't pull up anywhere and you don't wash out and get that Beasty brown color. I'm using kind of an altered citadel highlight, being kind of a top-down highlight, but we're adding in a little bit of flair to it, kind of making these shadows areas that look good to the eye but don't always necessarily make sense in terms of light angles. It's just going to look really cool. So when you're doing this, just kind of keep that in mind. You can either do this really realistically or you can do it kind of hyper-realistically, and that's kind of what I'm going for with these, because I want these to really look really awesome on the table, and a realism perspective isn't necessarily what we're going for here, but you can definitely take these techniques and apply it to a realistic sense paint job. Alright, so now we're going to do a detail highlight or another targeted highlight. It doesn't really matter what you call it, but it's just, we're going to be highlighting the areas that we just hit with the airbrush with some Stynylrez white. It's the same primer that we used in our Quickshade. We just mixed it with a little bit of Vallejo flow improver like I showed in the video. And we're going to be finding those areas, those hard angles, the big brightest top surfaces, these things that we want to just really be the very brightest. And the reason I went with white instead of a paint like ivory is because it's going to pop more, and when you wash it down, it's going to get that kind of ivory tone to it, but it's not going to darken it very much because it's that pure white, and it's going to keep our really bright highlights staying really, really bright even after a wash, and make sure that we have a whole lot of color separation and contrast in the model. And while you're doing this, one thing you want to really watch out for is speckling with your airbrush, because these really bright colors of paint, especially white, are prone to speckling out of the airbrush. I'm not exactly sure of the science behind it, I just know that's what they do. So you're going to want to use that flow improver as much as you need to make sure that paint is coming out without speckling anywhere. And what that means is that the paint that you're spraying might end up being really, really thin, might be thinner than what you're used to working with. So you're just going to have to really baby the trigger on that airbrush and make sure that you're not pulling up any of that white paint anywhere, because this is probably the most detail-oriented step of this entire armor workup, and you really don't want to screw it up. Alright, here we're going to be doing a gloss varnish of the airbrush with a little bit of Vallejo airbrush thinner to thin it down. And I like doing this especially on loyalist base raids because you like their armor to be really clean. And part of Deathwing is they do have this very striking bone armor, so I wanted the armor to look kind of aged with that really nice bone color contrast, but also I want the armor to be very clean. So we're using this gloss varnish to create a barrier that is going to lower the surface tension of the model, and that wash is just going to slip and slide all over it and only get into the details, and it's not going to want to settle on any flat surfaces creating stains. Okay, so the gloss varnish is dried. We're going to be doing our wash cycle on this. We're using the Army Painter system. So we're going to start off with some water in the Quickshade mixed medium, mixed in with a little bit of strong tone. And the way that I like to do this is to put in your mixed medium and your strong tone, or the tone that you're going to start off with, whether it be blue, green, or red, whatever, and mix those two together, because the Quickshade tends to brighten up that wash. You can see it kind of graze it out a little bit. And then just add a couple of drops of dark tone, as I think I've put 3 in there. And we're just going to mix that back up, and it's going to retain the effect that the Quickshade medium gives you, but it's going to be back down to that darkness of wash that we need, that kind of dark brown wash to really shadow those details up. And then we're just going to go all over the model, being pretty aggressive. The gloss coat really helps here because, like I said, it's lowering the surface tension of the model, so the shade only wants to get into the details, and that's what we're looking for. Now, when you're doing this, you can be really aggressive with your wash, but you still want to make sure that if anywhere is pooling too much, like if there's just too much wash on the model, that you kind of wick that away with your brush. Use the capillary action brush to suck that off the model and kind of move it around so that you don't have a bunch of dark pigment settling on top of your big bright highlights, especially on the armor plates, like on the thighs and the top of the head and stuff like that. So just be careful as the wash is drying, kind of watching, because you don't want that stuff to start drying and creating stains on there. And other than that, it's a pretty simple technique. Just kind of go all over the place with it, as long as you're keeping an eye on the pieces as they're drying and making sure to wick away excess wash before it gets too sedentary on the model, so that you don't get stains and that kind of coffee stain effect that nobody wants. Okay, so our wash is dry. You want to make sure that your wash is fully dry before you go into the matte varnish. And we're going to be doing the exact same thing that we did with the gloss varnish. Just mix it up with some of that airbrush thinner and start spraying it onto the model in really thin coats, making sure that it doesn't gather up too much in any one place. And getting a really solid coat of this on all your parts, because what this is going to do is it's going to remove the shine from any wash that dried shiny. It's going to remove the shine from the gloss coaters. You don't want that nasty gloss shine on your tabletop finishes. It just doesn't look good. And the third reason is that once you wash that model with the gloss coat on there and it dries, you're still going to have gloss showing through in certain places. And paint won't want to stick to that, just like the wash won't want to stick to that. So getting the matte coat just seals all that up together, and it makes it so you can keep on painting, because that's what you want to do. You don't want to have any headaches from that gloss coat later on. Alright, here we are. This is the model. I've kind of put it together. It's a dark vengeance push fit model, so I can kind of tack it together without too much issue. And this is what it looks like all together. The only thing you got to do from here is block in and highlight all the rest of your colors. Use some nice clean edge highlights. I recommend using the same skeleton bone for your edge highlight because it's going to be really vibrant. Use the paint off the brush rather than more muted tone of it from the airbrush. And then just pick out some of the brighter peaks with some Vallejo ivory, and it's going to look great. Thanks for watching. Check back for stream VODs and check out my Twitch channel if you want to see live tutorials.